Thank you, everybody, for coming. If you haven't already, if you can just put your name and affiliation into the notes, that would be great for our records. Um, and this session is sponsored by the CDF. We're the Council of Data Facilities, and we're a group cluster here that is focuses on issues for data facilities. We have talks and discussions about current problems people are having, solutions other people have had, and occasionally get together to work on specific projects. Um, we've been a cluster for a couple of years, and Karen Stock has been diligent as a co-chair over the years, but would like to step down. And so we are looking for another co-chair. I'll continue to chair the CDF into the future. So if you are interested or know someone that would be interested, we're going to try to make that transition in the next meeting or two. And we welcome people that would be interested to do that. And we'll be reaching out if we can't find anybody. Today, we are welcoming Shelley Stahl to give a presentation on a new grant that they got to, people. The current political situation in the United States is making funding for data facilities quite difficult for some folks, and so there's been a lot of scrambling around. Some long-term data sets have been under siege, and so she's been looking to try to help these data facilities go into the future. And I guess I'd best let her describe what's going on and take it away, Shelley.
Oh, Nick, I was looking forward to the Nick rendition of it. Um, so I have been part of the ESIP community ever since I arrived at AGU over 10 years ago. And you are part of my the very complex cloth that we all work on, the woven cloth, we work together. And one of the things that you all embraced me with is, and you all know I come from outside the research community, but you all helped me understand what it means to actually have the best possible data in discipline repositories. And you also shared with me over these years how hard that is. And that this is a really tenuous thing that we have. You have as repositories, and I'm thinking of the grant-oriented repositories here. So yes, there are repositories in NOAA and NASA that are line items and funded that way. But I'm thinking of the grant ones where you have to reposition yourself every couple years, every 3, maybe 5 if you're lucky, in order to continue operations. And over the last 10 years, that's gone from this is something that is annoying, but we know we'll get the money we need. We're challenged in NSF to do this in an innovative way because that's the kind of money NSF has. They don't have really operational money. And it's not super kind. It's not kind. You have to compete. So and this is where EarthCube was. This is all the things that you shared with me. And in the last 5 years or more, I'll just say 5 to pick a number. It's not so. There isn't any guarantee that you'll get that next round of funding, or you'll get it at the level that you want. So having prior to the administration change, there was already a tenuous situation happening across the NSF-funded repositories. So you all have your own unique stories. I'm not going to ask what those are. I'm just going to acknowledge the fact that I don't think anyone has been left out of this. There are a number of conversations I've had when NSF has been represented at the national academies. There's a board on incentives where I know the guy. I'll have to look his name up. But I called him out on it. He said that they don't like to support data repositories. This is one of the high-level leaders at NSF, but above Geo, above Oceans. And he's like, yeah, we don't want to do it. And when it got to be my turn, I called him out on it. I said, listen, buddy, those are assets for research. What do you mean that's not important to NSF? Keeping in mind, having the title with AGU, I'm in a safe place. I'm not going to lose anything. I have nothing to lose. I can say that. Not everybody can do that. Those who are funded directly as repositories, you can't do that. That puts you in a space you don't want to be in. And Sarah calling out the fact that NSF doesn't support ESIP. So let's just put that out there too. They're not good supporters of the repository community. Now, that being said, you all have good stories from your program officers. So acknowledging that there are pockets of goodness and they understand the value of the work that you have, but their hands are tied on the money that's available. Okay, so that kind of lays out the landscape. So then the administration changes. We all remember that. It's just over a year now. And we were all braced, I think even in November, 2 Novembers ago, for the fact that climate data was going to be a target. And it is. It wasn't a surprise. It's hard not to get super emotional talking about this. So I'm going to try to ride on top of the emotional wave, but it's legit. It's legit an issue. Right. So let's try to ride high, right? Keep it high. And you all went into action. So within ESIP, individually and in quiet groups, you all started to buzz on, oh, darn, now what do we do? And a number of you worked with NOAA data to do copying. I don't know if all of those folks are here, but I in the back of my mind, I know a few of those folks. I never asked to know who everybody was. It didn't matter. And at the beginning of last year, knowing things was a liability. Like I didn't want to know because I didn't want somebody to look in my email without my permission. And because we could be FOIA'd, AG could be FOIA'd. And by the way, we've put in a new email retention policy because of last year. So, we've cleaned our emails to make sure we don't have extra information we don't need to have. As is good digital practice anyway, right, repository folks? Of course. But there's a couple of folks in Signal and like conversations sharing that there's work to rescue data. And you're smart. You all are so smart. A copy of data is only so useful. Really, what it should any repository be threatened, it is the infrastructure is almost negligible as a risk. You can get new infrastructure, right? You can do that. It's the people who understand that data. It's the relationships you have with your researchers. And it's the tools you built specifically for your community to use your data. I probably there's a few other things. If you have them in your mind, hang tight. I will, it's good to talk about that momentarily. But that's what you all offer. You all offer that deep dive on understanding how your researchers use the data, how you work with them. You provide the ability for research to happen. And one of the things I like to say, because I think sometimes we don't wrap our arms around this so much. Research doesn't get simpler; it gets harder, right? The problems we solve are more we figure something else out, we go deeper, we go or higher, depending if you're into the planets. The data has to be easy for researchers to find, to submit, to be interoperable, to all the things that we I could use FAIR, but you all know you all were working on this prior to the acronym of FAIR. So this is what's on my mind last year. At the summer meeting in Seattle, I I talked to a number of you. I know I talked to Nick. I know I talked to Karen, and a whole bunch of you, maybe even Colin. I think you and I had a quick tete-a-tete. Mike, I think we talked. It's fuzzy, and I was talking about a proposal that AG was writing to get some money for, and I didn't even know what to call it because I didn't want to draw the attention of press, or I didn't want it to. I wanted to keep it quiet. We still need to keep things like this quiet. It's not safe to talk about this stuff in large make the newspaper ways, right? Like that kind of. So it's quiet here in ESIP. It's safe here in ESIP. And I do recall talking to the Council for Data Facilities to share that we'd submitted this grant, and that it is intended to support, in part, NSF repositories and bringing stability. So we didn't win that grant right away. Painfully, it took until November to win that grant. I had even given up on it. So if you all were like, well, she talked to us in July and then she said nothing, that's because I was, distraught, right? Like we didn't have it in our hands. Now we do. So the good news is we do. Okay, let me, Nick, I think I'll bring the slides up now. Yes, Sarah. Thanks, Sarah. Yay! Right. I will tell you though, most of us, when we were in a grant, you're joyous, right? You're joyous. The day I heard we won the grant, I actually felt a weight. I'm like, oh, now we have to do the hard thing we said we were going to do. Oh no. It was like grieving. It was grieving because it was actually, now we address the pain and we actually try to figure out how to navigate out of it. I want you to know there was no, yes, there was joy, but it wasn't, and you are living all of that now. So I just want to recognize that. Okay. So I'm going to scoot to the slides, and please, Lord, work. We're also having wonky things happen here. I think I'm tethered right now. Okay, here it is. So I have a few names on this slide. I fully recognize that AGU doesn't own a data repository. We have meetings and publication repositories, but we do not have a research data repository. To be clear, that idea came up multiple times in the last 10 years, and I said, oh no, oh hell no, no, you don't understand AGU. We don't have the skill set to do what our researchers actually need. No, we're not going to do that. We're going to work with our community. So for those of you who are interested in that underlying weirdness, I'm happy to talk about it. But I also recognize I don't have direct skills in this area. So I reached out to Danny and Adam. Danny, who I leveraged the fact that Danny was a past president for AGU Informatics, so that made sense, right? So we have an AGU connection. She's been really active within the Council for Data Facilities. At least, all of us are as active as coming to Nick and Karen's meetings right now. But there's EarthCube and prior work. And Adam, I think about Adam as understanding how to. Well, first of all, his work on science on schema. So that was a big deal. How do we discover data? And then he's also been working on light ontologies. And what does that mean globally? And what does it mean to also create as the tools necessary to make data as interoperable as possible? These two people are also trusted in your community. So it was very intentional to pick folks that are good advocates for the RDA. I'm sorry, did I say RDA? RDA will play a role in this eventually. But first here, I was just talking to Hillary, by the way. I'm so sorry that I did the squish. You'll understand momentarily when I give you the entire landscape we're looking at. But Adams and Danny have been good stewards in this community for as long as for their lifetimes. So that was a no-brainer to ask them for help. And then I don't know if you all know Natalie Harrower. She's in Canada. She prior to that, she was in Ireland working. She's had her own data repository. She's a professional facilitator as well, and understands the global community. So not so much our community, but she does understand the global community and those challenges. So she is contracted to be our facilitator for the convening that I'm going to tell you about. Okay. Um, all right. I really hope you all know and embrace AGU's data position statement. And this is my personal North Star. This position statement prompted the AGU board back in 2014 to actually hire me to think about these higher level multi-stakeholder challenges. Many of you were there when I showed up at ESIP. Many of you have watched that journey. And it's been all over the place, right? But what I try to do is work on things that require many stakeholders to be involved, where AGU makes sense to do that. I try not to get in the middle of things that don't require that. You all are brilliant, so that is how I try to frame things. And this statement is our data is a world heritage. And in these last 12 months, what I have come to understand better, I mean, I knew this, but I don't think I fully understood it. The data that are currently at risk in the US are heavily used all over the world. And there is a deep concern and a deep interest in what we're doing. So that is clear. So you know this, we're at risk. Okay, I'm just going to keep going. So the grant, which it has multiple names. I keep changing the names. It doesn't really matter. It's about data resilience. How we talk about it publicly will probably not have the word resilience in it. Just so you know, don't judge me on that. Just know that I'm trying to keep below the news. I was really grateful. The Politico lady at AG 25 asked me for my card. And I'm like, oh, dear God, please don't call me. Please don't call me. Please don't call me. She didn't. She did not call me. Thank God. So I dodged that. I would have handed her over to our comms folks. But nonetheless, I was really glad she didn't, because I didn't really want to have our stuff in the news. Not yet anyway. Which is so weird. Like, you really want to tell everyone, hey, we're working on this amazing thing. Not this year. And you all helped me with the Impactful Dataset project. I think I primarily asked the data stewardship folks, and they came in. This was March 25. You all helped me figure out what it means to define an impactful data set. We took citations off the plate. That we know that's not the only way to determine the value of a data set. Frankly, there's a lot of other ways. In citation, some Earth and space science data are not actually used. Well, Earth environmental data, space is used pretty a lot. Maybe there's a person on here from NASA who can say, oh, no, Shelley, we have that example too. But you could have a field study where that data are collected and not used for 50 years, and then it's super important. So measuring citation is not useful. Measuring how well that data can be reused, that's super helpful. And so you all helped me come up with this criteria. In the end, interestingly, every data set has been included. In the end, we ended up saying, as long as that's data and that person says it's important, they're going to be in the commentary. So all of that commentary has been drafted. Everyone who helped with that project will be co-authors. Everyone who nominated a data set will be co-authors. It'll be published in AGU Advances. And if you've not been contacted yet, Brian Sador is managing all of that. Once the commentary is published, there will be a special collection announced. And we know that the folks that nominated those data sets are users. And then we are going to voluntold, but recommend heavily that should you want to write a data paper about the data set, you have to go back to the repository and bring them in as co-authors. So the special collection will have a different aspect. It'll be a technical paper about the data set. And if you already have one, then that's fine. You don't have to do one. And then the grant will cover any publishing fees that are not already covered by another agreement. So that's how the grant we won plays a role. And we call that Pillar One. It's about $35,000, $40,000. It's not a whole lot of the grant. The grant is 1.5 million. The first pillar is this piece. Now, today I added those last two items, risk analysis and risk mitigation. These, oh, sorry, guys. I don't know what that is. Oh, just somebody randomly calling me from Alabama. That's weird. Um, uh, the risk analysis and risk mitigation, that's primarily in Pillar Two, but it starts here. The Joseph Gum had this idea. It's his idea, the impactful data sets idea. You will recall he is also the person who spearheading the repository risk analysis. So, good on him, right? And one of the things that was intended here is as these data sets are submitted, the folks that were making copies would make sure these data sets are actually copied. You all know that some of the really big guys are complicated and the data systems that are there. So in reality, I don't think we're actually going to be able to legit say that all of these data sets have a copy. But it's worthy to make sure that they're at least we're paying attention to the level of risk they're experiencing. So, okay. I'm going to pause there. Does anybody have any questions about the commentary or the special collection?
On the special collection, so that's going to be added to, people can, I'm just wondering how that process works, or
Yeah, they're going to announce it, and
okay.
yeah, it hasn't been announced yet, so nobody's lost anything. If there's a data set that's been nominated, you'll be invited immediately to join the special collection. But we won't stop anybody from submitting, right? You can submit. The link for impactful data sets, I think, is still actually active, though we did have a cutoff. The folks that kept adding data sets, I think we're trying to include them, even though there's an editing process, and I'll have to check with Brian to see if he actually has a hard line on a particular, moment in time when they're not going to accept any more data sets to be listed in the paper, in the commentary. But the special collection will be ongoing, and I think the nominations will be ongoing, and that community that's involved with that, they love this. They think this is great. So I think we're just being really vague right now because the special collection doesn't ever have to close. It can just be on and on. We do that a lot. So yeah.
Annie.
Shelley, can maybe it's we talked briefly about this with Nick prior to this meeting about it. In the past, the impactful data set nomination was really targeting researchers, but Nick's question to whether repositories can self-nominate data sets, there's really no restriction on that. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, anybody. There is no limit on who can nominate a data set. No limit. I will tell you that we very purposefully kept the nomination information quiet. So I know we didn't get to as many folks that AGU can go big. And I'm like, not the news, guys. We have to stay out of the news. Don't, because we started announcing this, I guess, summer or so of last year. And it's still dangerous to talk about environmental data and anything having to do with environmental data. You just don't want to hit the news on that. So we did it quietly. We gave the information to the World Data System. We gave the information here in ESIP. It was promoted here in ESIP. It was quiet. quiet. I'll admit that not everybody may have heard about it. If we can have it as a topic, if you want to tap back on that, I'm actually going to meet with the special collection person from AGU later today, and I'll see Brian, and I can let him know that you all would like to have a conversation, or at least you, Nick. And
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around it and see how, figure out how it can be useful, especially from the repository side. Like we have all these data sets.
yeah.
Certain ones are related. I mean, people do use them in papers, but
Yeah.
just sort of
Yeah.
how
And
to highlight
honestly,
that.
it would be really interesting if I gave you it's a Google form so that I can easily give access to the list that was intended to share the list. The commentary will include the list inside and outside. What does that mean, Shelley? That kind of sounds like we just had a conversation. The list will be part of the paper. It won't be an embedded table. It'll be part of the paper. And then, as good practice, we will also publish the list. Honestly, which repository should it go in? I mean, holy God. Pick well, Shelley. I don't know. I don't know, actually. God help me. It might go to Zenodo.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, somebody if you want to volunteer to take the list and host it for me, please do that, because I don't know the right answer for an aggregated list.
Well, it seems like Zenodo might, be the
All
right
right,
spot.
but you're going to judge me if I put this
Yeah.
You will. You'll judge me. Okay, anyway, so that's up for grabs.
Okay.
Yeah. And happy to think about this more. But let me move on, because we haven't gotten to the convening yet.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's not closed. It's open, it's ongoing, and it can be shaped further. So, okay. All right. Here's the other part. Here's where we talk about the convening. So, the other part of the grant, this is the blue text is straight from the grant. The black text on the bottom has been,
We can't see the screen.
You can't see the screen?
You didn't share, I think, back.
I'm seeing it. I can see it.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Okay.
Do you want me to stop sharing and reshare, Nick?
No,
Nikki lost the screen.
it's just me. It's fine. I'll figure it out.
I don't want to leave anybody behind. Let me stop sharing. And if I leave Nick behind, he's going to give me, it won't be good, people. It just won't be good. All right, share again. And offer.
There, I see it.
All right, super. Okay, so here's where Danny and Adam and Natalie jump in, right? So they're not helping me with pillar 1 or 3. They're helping with 2. And that's very intentional, because pillar 3 of the grant, which is about half I have to go look at the exact amount, but it's about half the 1.5, is the implementation. And I want to make sure they're free and clear to participate in the implementation. But they're helping with the convening so that we make sure. There's a lot of moving parts. I'm an imperfect person. You all know I'm rubbish with email. So it's really important there's other people who are paying attention, and make sure we hear everyone, all the voices are there, and we understand all the balancing that we're all doing. So this is the convening. There's some, no, okay, it's convening. We are doing this globally. We are very intentionally doing this globally, which brings in help with mitigation and all of the challenges that has, and all of the benefits. There's a number of international funders that cannot fund the US directly, that can fund a neutral location where the US can come, where you all can come to work on challenges. Just so you realize there's a very important strategy here. Plus, they see this problem as high risk. And so they are eager to figure this out. And I want to also lay out a landscape, and especially, I think Sarah's still here. Mark probably walked Sarah through this, but it's worth saying to everybody here. ESIP is alive and well. they're probably the only discipline-specific entity functioning. I'll say the environmental sciences. I know a lot of the other disciplines, they're also in trouble. There's no multidiscipline organization any longer. RDA-US is dissolved. They're like in a stasis. The National Academy's Board on Research Data and Innovation is dissolved. These things all happened in the last few months. They didn't have enough money to keep it going, and dissolved it. And CoData US is not terribly active. I don't know if anybody's on here from CoData US, but they're other than helping with working on IDW and such, there's not really activity there. And that's it. That's it. So other governments don't have non-US governments or entities don't have anyone to talk to in the US about climate data or environmental data, right? So there isn't anyone. That's a problem. That's a problem. So okay, I'm gonna hold there. Many of you are probably like, "Ooh, hang on, think about this thing." Sure. I'm giving you some broad words, but truly, there's not a group that's gathered everybody together to do the thing. And ESIP is fantastic, but you're funded by NOAA, NASA, and USGS. And that gives you such a fantastic positioning. I'll put a period there. Okay. We'll hold on that because you all know there's more to the conversation, but we'll hold right there. Okay. So did I do the 4 things yet? No, here they are, the 4 things. So we have 4 themes to the convening. And we're looking at governance, we're looking at architecture, we're looking at this both in the US and globally. When during the planning meeting where Danny and Adam and I were, we very specifically are coming at this globally and making sure that all of the US use cases are foremost, but that we are open to non-US use cases as well. You should know that we are not the first country to have an issue like this, where research and science have been defunded or climate data in specific is targeted. And so to do this in a way that's sustaining and enduring, we have to recognize that and design for that. So I just want you to realize why some of these words are positioned in the way they are. It's yes, and yes, the US is in trouble, and it's a global issue. I'm going to pause it. Danny, okay, let me walk through the 4, and then Danny, just know that I'm going to hand over to you, just in case you want to think about what you want to say. So we've regurgitated these 4 elements here many ways. So you might hear it in the meeting. We probably won't say it like this. We'll probably come at it a little bit more higher level than this. But you've all walked with me on this journey. So I just want to recognize, some of the middle ground that we've been on. So goal 1 for this meeting is discipline-specific data repository stability, grant funded. This is another way of saying NSF grant funded repositories for the Earth, space, and environmental sciences. I realize there's no space ones probably, but maybe there are. So that's by and large the people here in this meeting, right? The CDF and friends. But we want to also include this physical sample repositories, which I don't think are commonly included in the CDF. NCAR definitely, NEON definitely, EarthScope definitely, EDI definitely. I know Colin's here. And then, I didn't name everyone, right? Like you all know you're here, right? That's full-blown repository infrastructure. Like let's talk about what makes sense for you. Like everybody's no, they're not in the same place exactly. So that is, Adam's going to help with that. Danny's going to help with that. What does it mean to actually work together? And we start there. I think you've all started already having these conversations. So for me, time to get tuned in. The second one is data sets. And this is, so if a repository is, if you fall into category number one, then it's whole cloth. But if you don't fall into category number one, then now we've got data sets in specific. And this is really quite difficult. So okay, number one's difficult too. So let's be real. This one is actually already started. So I know I've just had a meeting with Stephen Diggs. We're going to meet again today. He's already started working on data set risk analysis. He's been meeting with data set managers, I think primarily NOAA, and trying to figure out exactly what the risk levels are. So if you're not in the middle of all of this, commonly, the actual data itself is fine. It's fine. It's there. It's in dark archive. It's somewhere. It's fine. The team that understands that data has been, hang on, I'm filtering words to say something that's not horrible. Let go, fired, retired, pushed out, dwindled. It's not fully supported. Okay. And sometimes tools are defunded where you can see the data, right? To be able to explore and understand and experience the data, because it's all complex, right? You build a tool to be able to understand what you're looking at. Sometimes those are taken offline, which makes it it changes the whole game for a researcher or a decision maker or other user, because they don't have those skill sets to explore that data necessarily, or they think they do, and now you're using data in a way that you probably shouldn't have. Not for lack of trying. And in our world, these data sets are time series. So what's the status of the instrumentation, the in situ network, the whatever it is? Are we still calibrating? Is it the same quality? Are we still getting the numbers in on a timely basis? Are there issues there? Yes to all of that. So figuring out the risk analysis are all of those things, and maybe you can think of others. I know that Steve put together a framework. I know Joseph Gum put together a framework. There might be others. To be honest, I personally don't care what framework it is, just that we take the time to figure this out. And then that gives us the information we need to be able to understand the risk level. And then what does mitigation look like? I've thought about that a lot. I don't know. You can't just take over, you can't say, hey, France, can you take over the instrumentation across the US? Like that's not a thing. So I don't know what the answer is to that. And this is where some conversation needs to happen on, can it be mitigated first? And if not, then all right, we just need to know that. And I think having that information, so for me, this grant is finding the people, hosting the discussions, tracking the actual status, and lifting up opportunities for mitigation, for conversation. And then you are all the experts on these pieces, right? Like, so that's why ESIP is really important here. And then inviting the global community where it makes sense to help support these conversations. And I want to be really cautious, because there's a lot at risk here. And I can, and Danny, and Adam and I were talking about this, and I'm sure this is on your minds as well. If you invite the global community, And this is a data set that they absolutely have to make sure is alive and functioning. And they see that it's at risk. We don't want the knee-jerk reaction to be, we're going to unentrench this from NOAA and plop it over here in something else without an appropriate conversation. Like, that's a sovereignty problem. That's a data ownership problem, right? Like, what is that? So we need to come in understanding what can be done, should be done, and what boundaries we shouldn't cross. I don't know. It's very difficult. So just wanting to put that out there. Okay. The other two, what does it mean to work globally? At what level? And RDA has been working on this. I was at the ESIP meetings yesterday where there's a lot of interest to do this. So this is fantastic. We're poised to have a good conversation here. And Sarah, I sent a note over to Hillary Hanaho, the Secretary General for RDA. She's very keen to meet you and learn what you're thinking. So just know I put some papers down for that.
Thank you.
You bet. I told her you're coming. She's like, oh, we weren't sure. We've been talking about you not knowing your name, right? Like, oh, is the new person gonna make it? We don't know. So now we have a name, and yes, you're coming. So good. And I see it. I see a beautiful partnership there. I do. Just so think about what you'd like out of that partnership. So and she will do the same. And then how do we sustain this? If government funding, so in November, I was asked to give a keynote at the EOSC symposium. If you don't know what that is, we're going to need to have some spin up on that. So the European Commission has spent upwards of $400 million on infrastructure, research infrastructure, and a good amount of that on data and fair data. There's an enormous amount of work going on, but they're just now thinking international. They haven't really done a lot yet on discipline specific. So the space is ripe for a moment. And I'm standing in front of them giving a keynote, and I'm like, hey, so when the government stops funding the important repositories, and I look out and I'm like, ooh, whoops. That's what they're doing here in Europe. They're funding all the repositories. So I said, like, what's happening? I'm like, oh, okay, well, it was a moment. But truly, they're not going to put that much money out forever, right? They're an investment, and then whatever infrastructure is stood up has to maintain. And it's not going to be at the level you want it, right? You're going to need other funding or funding to even out the bumps. Let's explore that. There's a number, we'll have a couple speakers that'll talk about some folks that have done that kind of thing. And then the pros and cons of everything. We'll get to that in the meeting probably on Friday. So if anybody wants to really think about that, it's gonna that will probably, at the moment, it's on the draft for Friday. Okay, Danny, over to you.
Okay. So I think maybe what we can do is, as Shelley, you've introduced these four kind of underpinning themes, but maybe if we pull it up a little bit more to sort of broad. Oh, well, there you go. Pulling out a slide. So I haven't seen these slides yet. So produce a roadmap for Earth and space. Yes. Secure, sustainable, resilient future. Immediate. Right. So if we back up just a little bit, I want to share with this community, this group of folks.
I'll give you a space to do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Some of the context that was driving the four themes that Shelley just shared was a sensitivity to the fact that we all know that we've tried this before. This concept of, hey, we're in a squeeze and we see the writing on the wall, and this is impacting everyone in the U.S. Specifically, right, for the context of the CDF here. And we know we've tried this before, and that's one of the things that we want to be sensitive to. And this is going to address the we think of this concept, which we all have Adam to thank for this. This is a great analogy that we're all in this sort of slowly, our individual boats. We're sort of these little independent units, and we're figuring out everything very unique to the community, unique to our evolution. And everybody's sitting in this boat that's slowly sinking. Their own boats are slowly sinking. And what does it mean to recognize that, come together to figure out a plan? If we all had to jump to a new boat, what would that look like? And given the prior attempts, digging into why didn't those things reach success, and the individual reasons. Maybe the timing wasn't appropriate. There wasn't a champion. Trying to steer away from, we all recognized during the meeting, if we just had more funding, we could do this. But in actuality, if we just had more funding, we wouldn't need to focus on this. We would all just put our heads down and go back to doing what we're doing. So having all of these concepts in our head, how do we come and think about this problem critically in a way that will enable actionable solutions? And so I think that's where Shelley was going with with her next slide. But we're going to acknowledge where we've come from, acknowledge the problems that we have, the heterogeneity across all of us, and that's what makes this so challenging. In this concept of how do we think about, if you're sinking, you're forced to move on to something else. What will you need to port? What will you need to jettison? What does that look like to craft a single lifeboat, if you will? Roll up our sleeves during this 5 days. The expectation is we're going to be working. It's going to be a coalition of the willing who need to come together and try and figure this out. And what are the actionable solutions that we can maybe, start looking at implementation plans for? And I think that the reason this is coming around again on the guitar is that it is acute now. The current administration has sort of forced this hand where before it was maybe not everybody was feeling the squeeze in the same way that we are now. And we've reached a point where I think that the U.S. repositories here in Shelley's context of the U.S. repositories are forming this very nucleated use case that we can bring to the problem space in a global context. And so even though we are not identifying NSF or U.S. grant-funded repositories, we are elevating this type of use case up as the one to focus on. And the global community, as indicated, they're all feeling this as well. This isn't novel to the U.S., but they are appreciative and sensitive to the U.S. being acute at this moment. So Shelley's language is necessary for this in a global context, but I think the focus is presenting an opportunity for all of us. And so that's where we're coming from. I think that now is presenting a time that has unique circumstances that weren't presented, prior to this year or the last year. And so I think that, in the context of this convening in Pillar 2, that's some of the focus. The what have we tried? Why has it failed? How can we change? What are the opportunities available to us? And what's palatable to dig into as a solution space? And I think that that's the focus of the convening. The other pieces fit in there in the context that Shelley's already presented. I think, if we could even pull up a little more to the global, the overall themes of the grant, the pillars represent these buckets of activities that are laserly focused around a particular goal or objective. As she spoke about, Pillar 1 being the impactful data sets, Pillar 2 being the convening and the themes within the convening that we're going to shoot for. And you haven't talked about Pillar 3 yet. And so 3 total in the award. We're focusing and socializing the first 2 with the CDF because it's highly relevant. Anything else, Shelley?
Talk about 3. You can go ahead. You're on a roll. You can talk about 3.
Well, I think it'd be great. Maybe your slide is the mystery slide that just popped up for a moment might be helpful in that context. But
your slide. Thank you so much.
Pillar 3 is going to be the implementation of that, or the road mapping to how those outcomes of the convening get realized. And so it's the sort of coming to fruition of the convening at its highest level. And I think there's a lot of the nuts and bolts and details of that are still in the works, as far as I understand. But
yeah, and it's undefined. So Pillar 3 literally just says implement the outcomes of Pillar 2, because we don't want to walk into the convening with an answer. We don't want to do that. We want to get to the answer with everyone. Now, the challenge here is the hang on. Let me do a little bit of filling. Hang on. Where are we? PowerPoint. Okay. So the invitation emails that we're sending out slowly, by the way, they're some of you might have received some. I think a couple of you on the call have received some. There's another round that are coming out soon. Include this text to describe what the impact is. And from this first one, that it's squarely written for the work that we're going to do at the convening, securing a sustainable and resilient future. And what does that North Star look like? What does it look like to actually create what our researchers need for now and future research, from the point of view of repositories and the data that we have? It is inclusive of Earth, space, and environmental science data. Just so you know, I have. It is very difficult to ask a federal government employee to come to this meeting. There are a couple folks I've had quiet conversations with that they think they can manage it, but I don't know if we'll be able to have them in the room. We'll see. There will be a hybrid element, but it will just be for plenary. So it won't be great, but it will be okay. Plus, we're going to be on a time zone that's wonky for the US. So, and then we do intend to move immediately into implementation, and the Pillar 3 money is for that. And so I will very intentionally end the consulting relationship with Adam and Danny so that they can participate as Bico Demo in the implementation, and be part of the team that can benefit from that. And that the people associated with risk mitigation for data sets is a different group of people. These are all of the folks working those data sets, many of them federal employees. So we will have some elements of that in the meeting, but that's ongoing. That's already started. The AGU has given me some time from some other AGU staff to help me manage that, just because it's a lot of coordination, a lot of people, and we're starting to spin that up probably next week. Danny and Adam and I are going to talk about it this afternoon, but we'll probably spin that up more next week. So if you happen to be associated with NOAA or NASA or USGS, this is where your stuff is probably falling into, is the second item there. And then this is our working title for the meeting. I think we've changed it 100 times, but this is it. This is the working title. The word resilience is not in there on purpose. Just know it is resilience. And that's the dates, and it will be Berlin. We do have travel money. I know that not everybody can or is able to actually come, or we will have room for. So I do want to ask Nick and Karen if we can continue the conversation here, specifically for that thread 1, in order to make sure that we do get all of the voices in that room, even if not everyone can be in that room. So that is something I'd like to work out with you all, especially for thread 1. That's my last slide.
All right, great, Shelley. Exciting things. Can see what happens.
Yeah, exciting, weight on the shoulder. So Emmanuel, who is over in Germany, he and I have been talking about this at the EGU meetings. A number of EGU folks, they're we have such support worldwide. Australia is, Leslie and the team there, Tim Rollins at Oscope. We have such support worldwide. We'll have friends from Canada there, the Canadian National Data Repositories. So things to think about. So I want to put the word sovereignty in your minds, because you need to something to think about is how much. I kind of. All right, I'm going to try out this analogy on you. I did not test this out with anybody. So it's kind of like babysitting, right? Like, you don't bring just anybody in to babysit your kids or your pets, right? Like, I have a dog. You don't bring just anybody in, right? You bring in somebody you trust. So when we're thinking about trusting someone in the US or someone outside the US, they're probably somewhat different, but not too different. What does it mean to get help from someone? So I'll give you one example. There are others. I'll give you one that I think is really tangible. Nick, let's use magic, paleomagnetism. I don't know this landscape, and so you're going to correct me really quickly, but let's say Europe has a paleomagnetism repository that supports European research. Can you nod your head or shake your head? Is that true?
So, I mean, we've actually worked really hard to try to have a full global integration. So there's a group called EPOS,
Yep.
and we have an agreement with them. And if a European researcher has to have their data in a European paleomagnetic data repository, we count.
Okay. All right.
So, I
So
mean, we were sort of
let's do
aware of
that.
that situation.
So that is a cross-country. So we could look at that relationship, and the folks in seismology have already done this. So we'll have that example of their MOU. We can look at that relationship and what would it mean to actually make that more meaningful. For instance, if your servers went down, could researchers go to EPOS and have the same experience there? How could we back each other up in a way where they are your babysitter, right? They are your trusted babysitter, your favorite, and you have enough language in that MOU where it's okay if that happens. We don't want it to happen, but it's okay if that happens. Like I'd say mirroring, but it's more than mirroring. It's a relationship where you support the researchers in the US, they support the researchers in the EU, and you intentionally back each other up and stay supportive of each other. So for me, I think that's one really important opportunity, but not everybody's going to have a sister organization. I don't know. Does that make sense to actually think through stuff like that, Nick? I kind of think.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, having two groups, I mean, you're spending more resources to have two groups that are active, I guess, in the uh, data, stack and infrastructure and the software that's running the data repository. Yeah, just mirroring it is,
Easy.
we've thought about that, we've discussed that. We don't do that.
Oh, sorry.
But if they thought that was important enough and, at some point, we could do that, but resources for this is already sort of tight. So to be spending more, I don't know, might be worth it to do that, to have two, sort of groups of people that can take over in different places if one side is compromised or no longer able to do it.
Yeah. The resource point, I for some of this conversation, we're going to need to suspend that worry. It's a legit worry, though. We do know that there's a number of funders, especially in philanthropy, where they're willing to do a surge effort, like they're willing. And one of the things I promised our funder, who's the Hewlett Foundation, what I promised them is part of the outcomes from the meeting is a package, is a series of packages, fundable packages with specific outcomes. So, for instance, we could say, and I don't know if this makes sense, right? Like, just know I'm hypothesizing here. Um, that you thought this through. It does make sense to talk through because we'll have EPOS folks in the room, right? So we're inviting EPOS to come, and ICOS and ENVRI and all the European E people. That's a joke. They don't all start with E, but Europe does. I mean, just like the US has a lot of US in it, in our names. Too soon, Shelley. Don't crack a joke on this yet. Um, uh, that we could say, okay, for X number of surge dollars, we can set the infrastructure up, but what we don't have is something that sustains. And so that's where Thread 4 comes in. How do we then create sustainable funding that goes forever and we're not dependent on philanthropy? So that's how I'm thinking of it. Surge effort, set it all up, and then ongoing support for that need because people felt that mattered, right? Like it mattered. And there's a lot of things that matter to people that repositories don't have any money for. So if we could get that money, then you have an opportunity. So I'm a glass half full person. I don't have money in my hand. Well, we do have the seed money, so that we have. We have to determine how we want to spend that. At the moment, I have hypothesized about 5 different ways or more to spend that money. So I wrote out different scenarios, none of which matter until we get in the room, right? I just try to figure out how to size it, who might need to be involved. We do intend to have 3 months of working meetings. We don't think we're going to get to final answers in 5 days. We think we'll get to intentions, but not final answers. So we do have 3 months is a made up number. I had to make something up, but intentional 3-month effort. I do have honoraria for people in the room or close to being in the room to lead the working groups so that your time is valuable and paid for. I have, don't ask me how I got, there's a number of things that I just pulled out of the air, but I have enough money for 2 chairs for 11 working groups. How did you get to 11, Shelley? Doesn't matter. I have 11. Doesn't matter. There was no rhyme or reason to it. I did, okay, 11. We may not need 11. Maybe we need 2. I don't know. I think we're going to need a number of things to think through on the other side. And I'm also fully aware that setting up new governance for a global entity is a no kidding multi-year effort. So we're going to go good intentions and continue to work on that, right? There are frameworks out there for that. There are examples of other organizations that have done it. We're going to just benefit from all that and see if we can get a good enough.
I think, yeah, keeping that minimal to start. I think a lot of EarthCube was focused on governing something that didn't exist. And so creating a governance doesn't create the thing itself. So I just think keeping that in mind is good.
Yeah. I will be and so making this invite list, you just have to understand is a nightmare. I will not get all the right people in the room. I just know that. I'm going to do my level best to get the right people in the room, but I won't be perfect. I won't have it right. And there's every intention of making sure that people do not feel left out. I already know someone's going to have a hurt feeling. Like you just know it. The moment you have boundaries on the amount of money and the amount of people and everything, someone's going to have a hurt feeling. So we will work really hard to pull folks in and make sure their voices are there. It will be imperfect. part of thinking through these different threads, when I when I pitched this to the open science lead for the European Commission, I went 1, 2, 3, 4. He's like, you realize 1 and 2 are completely different people, right? And I'm like, yes, thank you. Thank you very much. So 1, really important. 2, we'll look at it in the meeting, but it's got a lot of other people involved that just can't be in the room, right? Better to do that virtually and specifically and contact them, and right, that's going to be separate mostly. But I think mitigation has to be in the room. I think we have to think through mitigation. And by doing that, we also have to bring into the room the folks that have the means to mitigate. So the infrastructure that is not at risk. And that can be in the US, although mostly I don't think it is. I think it's outside the US. So we'll learn that. The folks that can actually take care of the kids while we're away. I won't say we went to dinner because that just sounds too nice. It's not while we're away. But there's issues with that, right? I'm really concerned about loss of knowledge. So we can't lose the people who understand the data itself. So how do we do that? I really do think I think there's a US entity that comes out of this. And Sarah, get your ear up. Okay. I think there's a US entity that's an operational entity that is that holds the US piece up, right? That is maybe there's common infrastructure there. Maybe there's a way to relieve the some of that money. Maybe there is a curator pool. Maybe, and it could be an existing organization or a new organization. It needs to be able to receive money. Maybe not today or this year, but it needs to be able to receive money. It needs to be able to receive funds. So it has to be a legal entity. And honestly trusted. It has to be really trusted. So I don't know who that is. This is not a new thing to introduce to ESIP. If ESIP wants to do that or not, it's new to Sarah, but not new to the discussion. It could be a sister organization that works closely. Okay, yeah, the seed vault, yeah, the caretakers, yeah, the backup, yeah, it could be that. And I think part of the conversation is the way I think about this meeting is we get there, and I'm going to try to understand as much of no, that's silly. Everyone will be new together in the room. We will design as much relationship building as we can, because you all need to get to know each other, and you don't know the global community. So that will be important, but it will also be important to understand the point of view of every voice. So we will make sure everybody in the room understands the pain points in a way that makes sense, but we will do it quickly. So there'll be read aheads. I know not everybody reads a read ahead, but whatever. We'll get the read aheads there. I will the people I know need to read the read aheads, I will nudge. Please read these. So we will start with where we are today and understand that situation. But I also think it's really important for us to hold, this is the kind of thing we need to head towards. And then what does it mean to go from here to here in a way, maybe there's many paths, there probably are, but as long as we can get to over here, that is the future of what we want, even if we can't, even if it's going to take us years to get there, if we agree that that's the path, or agree enough, like we'll iterate on this, but agree enough that we can start to say, okay, well, today we need this. In 6 months, we're going to need this. And in a year, we really need to have this. That's it. Then we got there, which means I can put a bow around today's needs, 6 months needs, and 12 months needs, and onward. We will have a lot of people in the room helping us with this. Let me tell you about the interest. So I have never in my life at AGU, so that's a 10-year-old myself, had as much oversight on this project as any other project I've worked on. In a couple hours and an hour, I have to brief our CEO. Every 2 weeks, I brief our CEO. Every week, I have a meeting with all of the executive vice presidents. They all have opinions, all of them. Danny and Adam have completely immersed themselves in the world of AGU executive vice presidents, if you want to get their take on it. They are on board. During our planning meeting, we spent a lot of time making sure all of them were on board, even though they probably, well, one of them might be able to manage it, but they probably cannot describe the nuances between repository types. Like that's just, but they know the value of what we're doing. They know the global value. Janice, who's our CEO, said, this will be a global solution. Got it. Now, how the US plays, that of course is a thing, but this will be a global solution. Of course it has to be. Of course it does. Janice met with our president and vice president. So that's Brandon Jones and Ben. Don't laugh at me. I gotta go look at his last name. Don't laugh. I know this is being recorded. Ben, dear God, I hope you're not watching this. Oh shoot, I've got it. I got my list. Shoot. No. Ben, somebody help me. What's Ben's last name? Quick. Tell me quick. Ben, our vice president. Zajac. Oh, Lord God. Okay. Zajac, our vice president. Ben's coming. Next week, the European Commission, the highest funding level in Europe, people who have spent $400 million on their infrastructure, are introducing myself and all of these upper level people to all of the research infrastructure folks at the highest level. So ENVRI, EPOS, ICOS, they are building infrastructure. They have already been meeting on this issue. They have had no one in the US to talk to. So I'm going to meet them. And the point of meeting them is I know the folks from the European Commission for years. That mattered. The European Commission is going to say to them, work with AGU. That's what they're going to say. That's the bet. That's the gift they're giving. Did you feel the weight on your shoulders? Did you feel it? I felt it. Did you feel it? They're not going to be the ones to solve the problem. They're going to be the ones to support the people who solve the problem. So I will ask, who do you want in the room? I've already invited the people I want in the room from their organizations, people I already know. It's okay. The room is large. Oh, look at that. Oh, I just got the email for the meeting. Okay. The meeting I'm telling you about, it just came in. Yeah, this is doable. I don't know what the steps all are yet, but it's doable.